Here's a very quick guide to the interface for the desktop version of VN to help you with your editing journeys. The main difference between the phone and the desktop version is this media window on the left hand side. The media on your phone is all stored just on the camera roll, so you don't have this section. But on the desktop, you can bring in all your clips to the stocks library, which is up at the top, and have the clips visible while you're working on your video. So if we look at this left hand window and just work along from left to right, on the left, we've got very far left, we've got photo, and photo links to your cloud storage, to your iPhotos. And so you can bring things directly in from that folder. As you can see here, I could just click on this and it would start to download it. Probably a better way to work would be to go to the second menu along, go to stocks, and then on the left hand side, vertical menu, come into favorites and import stock. Click on import stock and OK, and then that's going to take you to your Finder window, and you should have downloaded your video clips to there, and you'll be able to just directly import them from the folders that you've got organised on your desktop or hard drive. And once you've brought them in, they're going to be available on My Stock on the left hand side, and you can look at them, preview them, double click to open up the preview and play it all the way back to check that it's the right clip that you want, and then drag it onto the timeline when you want to use it. From there, moving along to the right, we've got elements, and this window, the elements, is just all your shapes, your stickers, your lines, your arrows. Probably the most useful one would be things like the social media logos, which you can use for call to action in videos, maybe some of these call outs if you're doing a lot of fast short form social media video, and also maybe for tutorials, things like arrows that you can add to point to relevant areas of the video. But there's loads to explore in there. So that's elements. Then we've got text, and that's obvious what that is. You can drop on some of these kind of bubbles or locations to add a lot of creativity to your video, or just stick with the standard. If we click on it once, it drops it down onto the timeline. You can see it here. And then you do all the formatting on the right hand side. So this is where the menu on the right hand side of the interface comes into play. I can just double click in the preview window. Click on the preview window to open up my title, type in the name that I want, and then I could do all my formatting using the tools on this right hand vertical menu, starting with the keyboard tool at the top to open up the keyboard and type in the name, then T for the style, A is for choosing my font and also changing the size of the font with this slider. Then moving down to the colour wheel, this is where I obviously pick the colours. And as with all the menus on VN, there's lots to explore. So we start with kind of some default colour combinations at the top. Maybe you want a white background with black text. So you could just pick that, save yourself time. Or you can scroll down a bit further and you can customise this by changing the colour of your text using the hex numbers, or just using the presets that are in here, or dragging the circle round to get the colour that you want, and so on. You just keep moving down. You could change the colour of the border and the shadow, and of course change the colour of the background as well. And then we've got underneath the background, we've got the radius, which if you're at 0 means you're going to have sharp edges to your background. If you go all the way up to 100, you're going to have a really rounded background, and anything in between. Underneath the colour, we've got the alignment. You can use the windows here to change the position, or to be honest, the easiest thing usually is just to drag it on the window using your cursor. Underneath alignment, we've got different blending modes, which is a creative tool. And underneath that, we've got the motion. So you can add an in transition. Let's add here a fade in, and you can add an out transition. Let's have it sliding out at the bottom. And finally, underneath the motion, we've got opacity. So you can just change the transparency of the whole text depending on what you want the final look to be. Okay, back to the left-hand window, to the media window, we've got music, and there's quite a lot of music in this free library on VN. You've got various categories. You can access the different categories on the left-hand vertical pop, dynamic, fresh. You click on the clip that you want to hear, it will quickly download it. Click on it again and you can play it to preview it, and then click on use to add it into your project. Beside music, we've got sound effects, and it's exactly the same kind of layout. The left-hand vertical menu gives you all your categories, from funny to machine to vehicles, and then the main window lets you just click through the different effects, download them, there we go, and click use to add them to your project. So that's the main difference, the fact that all your media and elements are stored not outside of the interface, but they're in this top left-hand media window. And the other difference is that some of the tools that would normally be found on the phone down underneath the timeline at the bottom of the screen are stored on the right-hand side. So at the top, we've got adjust, these 3 overlapping circles in a pyramid. We've got adjust, so this is where you'll find filters on the left-hand menu, or on the right-hand side, your basic adjust tools from exposure, contrast, brightness, and so on. Underneath adjust, we've got the timer tool or the speed tool, and again there's 2 menus. There's the curve menu, which lets you add what's called keyframes, where you can change the speed at different points during the clip. So you could start your clip at normal speed at 0%, then increase it to 6%, then bring it down really slowly to 0.4%, and so on. You get the idea. And underneath that, we've got all these presets like the montage preset, the bullet time, the jump cut. Quite a fun creative tool to play around with, but not easy at first. So perhaps the most useful tool initially will be the second menu, which is just the regular timing menu that lets you speed up the clip by 2 times, 3 times, 4 times speed, or slow it down by half, quarter, or whatever you want. Underneath speed is sound, and that's where you control the volume of your clip. So if we want to change the volume of the first clip of the presenter, we highlight that in yellow and then move the sliders in the direction that we need, and so on. If we want to then change the volume of the next clip, you need to have the clip highlighted in order to change the volume. Below that, we've got background, and the background obviously controls the colour or the style of what's behind your clip. Now, most of the time you're not going to need this, but if I just drag my presenter clip away, you can see that by default the background is blur. If I change from blur to colour and then select a colour, now the background has changed to that colour. So that can be useful for all sorts of reasons. One being, if you want a colour, it might be that you wanted to add a photo that perhaps doesn't quite fit the full width of the frame, and you want to have some kind of border or background on it, or you want to have your brand colours coming through. For the blur, the most common use of that for a background would be if you were going to change the aspect ratio of your video from a landscape video to a vertical video. And the way that you do that is underneath this preview window, we see this little square and it says original beside it. Click on that drop menu and we can change to a vertical video, which is the little TikTok symbol. And without having to do any edits ourselves, we can keep this letterbox landscape video in the middle, and the blur background just fills in with an expanded version of the video behind us. So that's a really quick shortcut to just take your landscape video and make it vertical. The other option would be to change that background to colour, as I've just shown before, and add your brand colours in the background, and then use that background maybe to add a title above and captions down below. Underneath the background, we've got a border, which kind of does a similar thing, but it just adds a border. And again, you can pick the colour of your border. And in order for that border to be visible, you just need to make your main clip smaller. Again, I can't think of many uses for that, but one might be if you've recorded a webinar and the resolution of the video is not very good, so it's a really small kind of thumbnail video clip. Maybe putting a border around it just makes it look a bit nicer, using your brand colours and so on. Underneath border, we've got the zoom in, zoom out tool, which means if I apply zoom in to the clip, it will slowly start with a wide shot and slowly zoom in over the duration of the whole clip. And the final thing on the right hand side is opacity, where you can just change the transparency of that whole video clip. That's the basic tools for the interface for the desktop version of VN. The main difference is you've got this left hand media window, and you've got some of these tools like speed and volume and so on stored on the right hand vertical window rather than down underneath your timeline below.